She had something most people spend their whole lives chasing: complete emotional control. No drama. No chaos. No being pulled into other people's problems. She could sit in a room full of conflict and feel nothing. Watch people spiral and stay perfectly calm. Hear criticism and remain unmoved. From the outside, it looked like mastery. Like she'd figured out what everyone else was still struggling with: how to not let things get to you. People admired it. Envied it, even. "I wish I could be that detached," they'd say. "You never let anything bother you. How do you stay so calm?" And she'd smile. Because she had what they wanted: emotional independence. Freedom from the mess of caring too much. She ate better than people drowning in anxiety, and felt less than people who still knew how to cry. Emotional detachment is sold as enlightenment, stoicism, mindfulness, not sweating the small stuff, the ability to remain unbothered while the world loses its mind. It's what every self-help book promises: freedom from emotional reactivity. Don't let people get to you. Don't take things personally. Don't let your emotions control you. Control your emotions instead. And she'd mastered it. Years of practice. Years of training herself not to react, not to engage, not to feel things too deeply. She learned to observe her emotions from a distance, to acknowledge them without being consumed by them. When someone hurt her, she didn't lash out. She processed it internally and moved on. When someone disappointed her, she adjusted her expectations rather than expressing her pain. When conflict arose, she stayed neutral, rational, above it all. It made her powerful in ways most people never are. She couldn't be manipulated through guilt, couldn't be controlled through emotional leverage, couldn't be hurt by people who thrived on getting reactions. Arguments with her went nowhere because she refused to get emotionally invested in being right. Relationships that turned toxic couldn't trap her because she could walk away without the emotional weight that keeps most people stuck. She was untouchable, unshakable, free. At least, that's what it looked like. From the outside, emotional detachment looks like strength. Like you've transcended the petty emotional entanglements that trap everyone else. Like you've achieved a level of self-mastery that makes you immune to the chaos. People saw her composure and thought, "She's got it figured out. She doesn't need anyone. She doesn't get hurt. She doesn't lose control." What they didn't see was the cost. What she was trading for that control. What happens when you remove yourself emotionally from everything, including the things that make life worth living? The first thing that disappeared wasn't pain. It was joy. Because you can't selectively numb emotions. When you train yourself not to feel the bad things too deeply, you also stop feeling the good things too deeply. She noticed it gradually. A friend shared exciting news. Something they'd been working toward for years. And she felt nothing. Not happiness. Not excitement. Just a mild acknowledgement. "That's great. Good for you." The words were right. The feeling wasn't there. Someone she cared about told her they love her. And instead of feeling warm, connected, moved, she felt observed. Like she was watching herself receive affection rather than actually feeling it. The emotional distance she'd cultivated to protect herself from pain had created distance from everything else too. She was safe. But she was also alone. Not physically. She had people around her. Relationships. Connections. But emotionally, she was isolated. Because emotional detachment doesn't just protect you from being hurt. It protects you from being reached. And slowly, without realizing it, she'd built a wall so high that nothing could get in. Not pain, sure. But not love either. Not disappointment. But not hope. Not anger. But not passion. She'd become a spectator in her own life. Then came the second cost, hypervigilance. Because maintaining emotional detachment isn't passive. It's active. Constant. Exhausting. She had to monitor every interaction. Every moment. Every feeling that tried to surface. Is this feeling too much? Am I getting too invested? Am I losing control? She'd scan conversations for signs she was caring too much. Getting too attached. Letting someone in too far. And the moment she felt anything approaching vulnerability, she'd pull back. Not dramatically. Just a little distance. A little less availability. A little more guardedness. It became a ritual. Someone got too close? Create space. A situation felt too intense? Detach. An emotion felt too big. Observe it from a distance until it passed. She thought she was protecting herself. But really, she was policing herself, surveilling her own emotional state like it was a threat that needed to be managed. Every genuine feeling became something to be controlled rather than experienced. Every moment of connection became something to be suspicious of. Because connection means vulnerability. And vulnerability means risk. And risk means potential pain. So she stayed detached, safe, in control, and completely, utterly alone. Not because no one wanted to be close to her, but because she wouldn't let them. Emotional detachment becomes its own kind of prison. Because once you've committed to it, you can't break the rules without feeling like you failed. She couldn't let herself get excited about things anymore. That was too vulnerable. Couldn't let herself be disappointed. That was losing control. Couldn't let herself need anyone. That was weakness. Every emotion had to be filtered, managed, kept at arm's length. It wasn't freedom. It was obedience to a rigid internal system that punished her for feeling anything too deeply. She'd created rules she couldn't break. Don't care too much about outcomes. Don't expect too much from people. Don't let anyone see you need them. Don't react. Don't engage. Don't let it matter. And she followed them perfectly. But following them meant she couldn't fully show up for anything. Not for the people she loved. Not for the work she cared about. Not for her own life. Because when you refuse to be emotionally invested, you're not present. You're performing presence while keeping the real you locked away somewhere safe. Somewhere no one can hurt you. But also somewhere no one can reach you. Including yourself. She thought emotional detachment was power. The ability to not need anyone. To not be affected by anything. To stay calm while everyone else fell apart. But it wasn't power. It was protection that had calcified into isolation. The thing she'd built to keep pain out had also kept everything else out. And now she was trapped. Not by other people. Not by circumstances. By her own refusal to feel. She'd won the battle against being hurt. But she'd lost the war against being human. Because humans aren't meant to be emotionally detached. We are meant to feel things. Deeply. Messily. Intensely. That's not weakness. That's what makes us alive. The moments that matter, the ones that change you, connect you, move you, they require emotional investment. They require you to show up with your whole heart, knowing it might get broken. They require vulnerability. And she'd spent so long avoiding vulnerability that she'd forgotten how to access it. She was safe from heartbreak, but she was also safe from love. Safe from disappointment, but also safe from hope. Safe from being hurt, but also safe from being moved. And a life where you can't be moved? That's not freedom. That's just a different kind of prison. One where you're both the guard and the prisoner. Watching yourself from a distance, making sure you never feel too much. Never risk too much. Never let anyone in too far. The power to not feel pain comes at the cost of not feeling much of anything at all. And that's not strength. That's survival mode masquerading as enlightenment. We live in a culture that romanticizes emotional detachment. Don't let them see you sweat. Never let them know they got to you. Unbothered energy. Protect your peace. The message is clear. Emotional availability is weakness. Caring too much is a liability. Feeling things deeply makes you vulnerable. So we train ourselves to detach. To not care when things don't work out. To not get too excited when things do. To stay cool, calm, collected, regardless of what's happening. We curate lives that look effortless. Unbothered. Above it all. We ghost people before they can disappoint us. We leave situations before they can hurt us. We preemptively detach from anything that might make us feel too much. And we call it self-care. Boundaries. Emotional intelligence. But here's what we don't talk about. The cost. What you lose when you remove yourself emotionally from everything. You lose the ability to be surprised by joy. To be devastated by loss. To be transformed by love. To be moved by beauty. To be connected to other humans in a way that actually matters. Because real connection requires emotional investment. Real love requires vulnerability. Real growth requires letting yourself feel things you can't control. And when you've trained yourself to detach from anything that feels too intense, you've trained yourself out of the moments that make life meaningful. The irony is this: emotional detachment was supposed to protect you from pain, but it creates a different kind of pain. The pain of loneliness, of disconnection, of going through life without ever really feeling it, of looking back and realizing you were so busy protecting yourself that you forgot to actually live. She learned this slowly, in the moments when she wanted to feel something and couldn't, when someone she loved needed her to show up emotionally and she didn't know how anymore, when something beautiful happened and she experienced it from behind glass, present but not really there, safe but not really alive. Emotional detachment isn't mastery. It's avoidance dressed up as strength. And the people who've truly mastered their emotions? They're not the ones who don't feel. They're the ones who feel everything and choose how to respond to it, who can sit with pain without being destroyed by it, who can experience joy without needing to control it, who can be vulnerable without losing themselves. That's real emotional intelligence. Not the absence of feeling, but the courage to feel anyway. To risk being hurt because the alternative, never being touched by anything, is worse. To let people in knowing they might leave. To care about things knowing they might not work out. To show up fully even when it's terrifying. Because that's what it means to be human. Not emotionally detached. Emotionally brave. And if you've spent years removing yourself emotionally, thinking it would make you stronger, the strongest thing you can do now is let yourself feel again. Not recklessly, not without boundaries, but with the understanding that feeling things, even painful things, is better than feeling nothing at all. Because when you remove yourself emotionally, you don't just remove the pain. You remove yourself. And a life where you're not really present, not really connected, not really feeling anything. That's not freedom. That's just another way of disappearing.